piece of property is in Johnson County, and it's kind of an interesting piece. We bought it 2 years ago, but this barn behind me is a really interesting piece of history. We've brought in some barn experts to analyze and look it over and give us an idea of when they think it was built. And it appears from everything we've gathered that it's 1850s vintage. And some interesting things about it and some reasons why they think it was built around that time is because it predates the use of saws. So a lot of the structural beams that you see when you go, and it's two level, when you go on the underside you can see the structural beams, and you can see that they're really hand-hewn wood. They've left the bark on some of the trees that they brought in. It's rare that a barn this old is still standing. Even the limestone around it is really nice. And so it was our desire to save the barn. But what we've been doing for the last month or so is taking it down kind of piece by piece. You can see the crane in the background now getting the big structural pieces and laying them down. So once everything's down, we're going to do some dirt work and make a new foundation, and it will not have a basement when we rebuild it just because of the costly expense to do both. But we're going to rebuild the upper structure, reuse all this wood. This limestone structure, what makes this unique is the quarry that we have on the farm was called the Eicher Quarry, and so all of this rock came out of that quarry when they built this barn. And we're also told that the Coralville Dam, which is not too far from here, rock out of the quarry here was used to build that, as well as Prairie du Chien Road that connects and goes over the dam here in Johnson County. So that's kind of also interesting. We'll spend the summer then with the rebuild process, and we'll put the original wood back in, we'll put new wood, barn wood siding on it, and really try to preserve as much as we can, since it is a great piece of history.
It's a pig barn with square nails, and it had a good roof on it, a new roof sometime back, probably in the 40s, and so it preserved the wood. And it other than being crooked from starting to fall down, we decided to save it, and they're taken apart in pieces so that we can have the thing rebuilt on a straight foundation and preserve the rustic interior of it for the long run.
We're starting to reconstruct it, so we've made it now a one-story barn. We've got the foundation poured. Of course, what you see in the background there are the overhead doors, hydraulic doors that we'll have that can open on either side there, but we're going to put all the old original beams back in. So the goal here probably over the next few days is we're going to stand up a row of those beams, and then gradually it'll get set up, and we hope here in about a month and a half, 2 months, we'll have it enclosed, and then we'll put original barn wood back on the outside of it. You can see we've got these columns laid down here where they're getting put back together, and eventually the plan is to start raising them up here, and we'll do that across. I'd like to introduce you to Justin, who's our barn expert, and he's the one here that's helped us with the project and helped us with the design and the drawing of putting together what we want it to look like as we reconstruct it, and then you're really leading and project manning the process to resurrect the barn.
I'm Justin Strait. I'm the barn expert, I guess. There's a lot to learn always on these projects, and everyone's a little bit different, but part of what makes this barn so unique is that it's actually a combination of different materials. And so the vertical posts are all hand-hewn hardwoods that almost assuredly were trees that grew on this property that they cut down and used as the posts. And then all of the horizontal members in this barn are actually softwood. And so usually it's one or the other, all softwood or all hardwood. But because of this barn's size, it's 40 by 80, so it's 3,200 square feet. So this is a good example of where the top plates splice, and this is technically it's a lap joint, but some of the times they refer to it as a scarf joint. It's fairly simple joinery, but this is where the post comes up through and supports here. And so you can see on this tenon, this is one of the areas that we had to do epoxy repairs on. And part of the reason for that is that this wouldn't be wet when they actually cut the tree down, and it wasn't like it was kiln dried and they wouldn't let it set. And so the wood would dry over time and it just naturally splits and creates a lot of the character. But in the structural areas, we did epoxy repairs and refilled that in so that when we go back to peg it, we know that we're going to have a strong structural connection with the original method of doing the wood pegs. In this area over here, this is some of the changes that we're actually making to the frame. Are going to incorporate some of the unused posts. And so because we added the big steel structure to accommodate the hydraulic doors for this, we were able to salvage some of the material that we weren't using. So these oak, they were originally posts, end up going to be horizontal beams that'll support the front edge of the deck that is going to be built in here. And so it'll really make a nice showpiece out of the hand-hewn lumber, and on the face of that deck really kind of show it all off nicely. We're putting our steel extensions on that's going to raise the height of the barn 18 inches, and then that's what we anchor down to the concrete as well. And so within the next week we'll have at least half the frame up, and then I hope within 2 weeks we'll have the whole frame up and we can start to get onto the roof framing. It'll look just like it did originally. Hopefully we can get to that point where we can get everything enclosed before the snow starts flying, but there's a lot of wild cards out there yet, so fingers crossed that we can get there.
So it was about a year ago that we started talking about the barn and that we disassembled the old barn structure that was here. And so over the last 12 months we've been doing a lot of work at resurrecting the barn. And so what you see behind us is the barn structure, and it's being built from the inside out. So we used old barn wood that will make the interior walls. And then we've put tar paper on the back of that, and we're putting the 2x4s around. The electrical wall get run, and then the spray insulation will go in, and then we'll put barn wood on the outside, so the exterior will be wrapped in barn wood. And lots happen on the inside too, so when we go inside you'll get to see what the interior looks like, but it's really starting to take shape, and hopefully here by end of summer we'll have a complete barn. Yeah, so here we are inside the barn, really for the first time, because last fall when we were harvesting, like we said, we just had the structural beams up and it was open. But you can see the effect now of that, of how we built it with the barn wood on the inside, and then we'll have the insulation between and still have the exterior barn wood look when it's all said and done. So also around the walls here, they're framing that in, so they'll have kind of a seating area, once that's all boxed in. So that goes all the way around. That was my husband's idea. He's actually been the one that's really been involved with this project and working with Justin, his team is building the barn and designing its end state. So there's a staircase that'll come up here to this platform. And the stairs will actually go up. So all the way up, you can look out that window. Just be kind of fun to be able to go up high and look out. So this is my husband Ryan, and he's been really involved in this project. It's kind of been more of his project, I would say, and he's done a great job working with the guys that are reconstructing the old barn. So we'll let him talk about some of the ideas he had as we recreated things when we go inside.
I would say this is the barn of 1,000 decisions. There's been a lot of thought, a lot of figuring things out as we go. There's very few things in the barn that you can get from a store, aside from maybe some 2x4s. The rest of it pretty much has been handmade and fabricated and cut and joined and pinned and glued, and it's pretty much hand-built for the most part. Justin and Adrian have done a great job, but a few things that are finished. Obviously, the stone masonry across the bottom are kind of the bench that goes all the way around. The big change, obviously, that we did to the barn structurally is we took out 2 of the vents in the center, which are the north-south running sections that would have posts right here and there. So we took out 4 posts to give it a great big open section, and built the big steel, I guess we'll call it the table structure, that goes up over the top and carries the load of the queen posts. The load all bears down onto concrete footing, so the open middle section is open to everybody's use. We found these wagon wheels laying out, about 100 feet west out here on the edge of the field. As we cleared the farm, we pushed back all the old trees and scrub trees, and we find iron in all sorts of interesting places, which can be a bit of a hazard. So we've been trying to collect some of the iron, and these got pulled out, and I was looking at them. I don't know who we were talking about, and we decided those could be kind of interesting chandeliers. And we think John thinks they're an old farmall, perhaps, maybe a case. We're not entirely sure, but they're the steel-wheeled cleats. It's got rivets on it. They're riveted. Certainly old, for sure. And the big feature that had been looked at in the past is the hay mower, and Justin spent a lot of time and work getting the rails back up. It is able to move end to end in the building like it originally did. And then if you turn around, certainly a unique feature of the barn is the second floor deck. So we added a stair rail system with, 3x10 treads? 3x12s, excuse me. Those treads are quite beefy. And then the original posts turned into the posts, the wood railings. We added the steel railing, and then it goes all the way up to the second level up at the top, where we can open the door and look out to the west and see the sunsets once it's done. A few little things yet to be finished up there. Obviously, all the lighting, the queen post lighting, is not original. You can see the door start to open very softly and noiselessly. The hydraulic lines go up over the door, back down under the bench, all the way around to a single hydraulic pump behind us that runs the north door and the south door. And once we open them entirely, it's lets a lot of air blow through here. Makes it really quite pleasant.
The order of operations was basically just that. We put up the steel frame, then we put up the timber frame, we put up the roof framing and sheeted it, and then we put all the wood siding on the timber frame to make it look like a barn on the inside. And then all the magic really happened on the outside of that made it a modern structure. This is a great example of how we lifted the whole barn up about 18 inches. And so we used risers all the way around the perimeter, and that was part of the purpose for the stone-faced bench, is that it hides the steel risers that support the posts all the way around the perimeter. And then on these interior posts, we'll actually wrap those with wood from some of the old sleeper logs that were the floor rafters in the original barn. So we'll take those and cut the hand-hewn veneer off and use those to wrap the steel. Ryan had a fantastic idea with the spindles and having more of the classic kind of wrought iron look. So these, with the distressing on the square bar stock, gives it a really nice kind of subtle detail. It's amazing to think back on how they did some of this construction without the conveniences that we have. Much credit to the guys who originally built this thing, but it's come together finally.